Hey, what's going on? I'm Jordan Harris, and you're watching Sports Truth. So today I want to talk about the perfect fix to the bowl games. I think the NCAA needs to do this idea right now, yesterday, last year. But before we talk about what the fix is, I want to talk about what the problem is. And if you ask me, I think the problem stands on three legs, and each of those legs actually impact one another. It's like a domino rally effect. So let's go through that real quick, okay? Um, We'll go through those three problems, and then I'll talk about what the NCAA should do to erase those three problems. And then I'll go over some questions that I assume some of you may have, and then I'll give you the answers to those. So, the first of three legs of this problem is the players. The players feel like the games don't matter. They feel like the only thing that they can get out of these games is an injury, and they don't believe that it could potentially help them. They just think that it's a potential chance of it hurting them. That's why they're opting out, right? It makes logical sense. The second leg of the problem, the fans. So the players impact the fans. It's a domino rally effect. Players aren't playing, so now the fans aren't interested in watching the games. So if you look at a game and five of the star players are not playing, then why even watch the game, right? So first you got the players, then you got the fans, and then the next part of the domino rally, sponsors. If fans aren't watching, obviously viewership drops. It makes sense, right? And if somebody is telling you to pay $1 million to have 1 million people stare at your logo all day, maybe that's a good deal. But then if after you pay that $1 million, they tell you, well, actually, I only got 600,000 people to look at your logo, you'd probably be pretty upset about that. And that's what Tostitos and all these other sponsors are going through right now, trying to figure out what their return on investment would look like. So those are the three parts of the problem. Players, that affects the fans not watching, that affects the sponsors and the sponsorships. Okay? So now let's go ahead and get into it. What is the fix? And I'm hoping that you all watch to the end of this video and not just look at the first part and say, oh, I'm done with this. But let's go ahead and get into the fix. I know one part that's going to turn some of y'all off, and that's okay. But it's a big old money bag in the middle. And I know a lot of y'all say, oh, I don't want to pay these players. They're amateurs. I'm going to say, let's stop pretending that these people are amateurs now. Whenever it came down to bidding wars for quarterbacks in the offseason, the amateurism went away. When my Hurricanes got into a bidding war with Florida State for Cam Ward, amateurism went away. So let's stop pretending that these are kids. These are grown men making money playing a sport. So let's just be done with the amateurism talk and being scared to pay people. Let's just go ahead and jump right into it and stop. Let's just take the veil off our eyes. All right. So it is what it is at this point. Okay. So the first part is each bowl game. So walk with me through this. Okay. So each bowl game is placed into a conference championship with three other bowl games. So you end up with a championship tournament of 8 teams. Okay, so let's look at this one. You have this bowl game, which is the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl. You've got the Ticket Smarter Birmingham Bowl, the Guaranteed Rate Bowl over there, and the Las Vegas Bowl. So these are the four bowl games that you have in this one championship. And I'm calling it the Harris Championship because for whatever reason, I don't know why, but Harris just sounds great in this situation. So this would be called the Harris Championship, and these four bowl games are in this championship tournament. Okay? So the winner of the Pinstripe Bowl would obviously play against the Birmingham Bowl, and then the champion from that side would play against each other, and the winning team of this championship tournament would get a cash prize. So let's go through some questions. All right. So the first question I'm sure you're thinking is, why pay these people money? Like, why pay these athletes money? We shouldn't have to pay them. And I'm going to tell you this. I've owned many for-profit businesses, and I've owned, or not owned, but I founded some nonprofits as well. And I promise you, the people that I pay, they move a lot quicker than the people that I don't pay. It's easier to find somebody who you're paying to do something for versus somebody that you're hoping volunteers to do the job. So if you pay these people, I'm certain that the outcome would be much greater as far as how many players would show up to play the game on Saturdays or Mondays or whenever the games are. So that's why you pay them, is because getting profit players, people who are making money, is a lot easier than getting volunteer nonprofits. It just is what it is. So that's why you would pay them. All right. So I'm sure the next question is, how much money and where would this money come from? I'm sure a whole lot of people are thinking that. The first question, let's tackle that one. How much money would it be? The amount of money depends on the bowl. It depends on the championship tournament. Okay, so let's assume, and we're gonna have to put our assumption caps on for a while. And I know a lot of y'all probably don't want to do that, but let's go ahead and put our assumption caps on. The more highly ranked the championship bowl is, so the more highly ranked teams are in here, those are going to pay more, okay? Those championship pots, if you want to call it that, would be larger, okay? So, got to make a few assumptions here. The first assumption, let's assume that this championship bowl is the championship bowl that is directly under the college football playoff. So, college football playoff, let's say that's going to have team 1 through 12 in there. Well, since this is 8 teams, this would have team 13 through 20 in it, okay? So this is the bowl that's directly under the college football playoffs. Let's also assume that the winner of this championship bowl or the championship tournament would get $100,000 per player. And then let's assume that each team has 118 players. That would mean you would need a little under $12 million. I'm going to do that number in my head real quick. A little under $12 million is what you would need to pay that winning team. Let's assume the Hurricanes win this one. The winning amount for that Hurricanes team would be a little under $12 million. Okay? So the question is, would you play $400,000? If you had an opportunity to win in this tournament and make $100,000, would you play in it? And I'm guessing the answer is yes, absolutely. All right, so the next question would be, where would the money come from? The quick and easy answer is, if you think that NCAA cannot afford to pay $12 million for this, you're crazy. You probably need to look up to see how much the NCAA makes every year on football. But anyway, let's assume that the NCAA can't afford to pay $12 million for this winner. Okay, let's assume that. We're going to go a different direction here. We're going to have to raise the money from the different sponsors, okay? Now, it's reported that Tostitos paid between $15 million and $20 million for sponsorship title of the Fiesta Bowl, all right? So, yeah, it's big money, right? $15 to $20 million is crazy. But if each of these, let's say if each of these teams or each of these businesses, let's say they only want to contribute $5 million instead of 15 to 20 million. If each of these contribute $5 million, that gives you $20 million, and then 12 will go right here in the middle, okay? It wouldn't be that high, obviously, but you get what I'm saying. So that's how you would have to do it, is the NCAA would hold a portion of the profits, and then they will put that right in the middle for the winner, all right? Next question is, why would the NCAA agree to pay out that much money? The answer is because what they're doing right now is dying. It's pretty easy to see that. You can look at the viewership. You can look at all kind of different areas. The NCAA bowl game system is dying. And if you know anything about business, if you're in a sinking ship, you need to be doing one of two things: looking for another ship to jump onto, or start making repairs to your own ship. And right now, it's definitely time for the NCAA to be making repairs to their ship, because what they're doing is sinking quick. And like I said, you can look at any viewership numbers you want to over the last 10 years, and they're all going down. Pretty easy to see that. So the other reason is because it would instantly increase their viewership. Easily. Because the players who we want to see are now playing. And then there's also this opportunity to win something towards the end, so we want to see how that plays out. But if the viewership is going up now, it gives the NCAA an opportunity to charge more for their sponsorships instead of having to cut deals with people and say, okay, viewership is a little down, so instead of paying us 15, go ahead and give us 14 and we'll call it good. You know what I'm saying? So if the viewership is going up, it allows the NCAA to be able to offer or to demand more money for their sponsorships. So Now, let's go through those three legs that I talked about in the beginning, those three legs of the problem, and let's identify how each of those are being resolved with this tournament idea. Okay, so first, let's talk about the players. The players are now enticed to play. And if they're going to the NFL, I know a lot of y'all are probably saying, man, they're going to the NFL, so they'll probably still sit out because $100,000 is chump change to an NFL player. $100,000 is not chump change to an NFL player, and it definitely wouldn't be chump change to a college football player. Just go and look at what the salaries are for an NFL player that gets drafted in the fourth or seventh round, something like that. Just go look at it, and you'll know $100,000 is not anything to sneeze at. Okay, so also, let's say if a college football player did think that $100,000 was chump change to them, it would be pretty cool, or I think it would be logical for a college football player who's going to get drafted pretty high to look at his teammates and say, I could make this walk on $100,000 if I went ahead and played these games. I think we could win 1, 2, 3 games, and I could get this walk on who doesn't even have a scholarship. I could make him $100,000. Or my running back who's not going to get drafted, he's been playing hard all season. If I play, I'm pretty sure I could help him make $100,000. I think that would entice people to play quite a bit more. And then also, the players aren't going to look at this as a one random game at the end of the season, like most players look at these bowl games. Instead, they'll be looking at this as a stepping stone towards a championship, and I believe that that would entice them to play even more too. So that's the first part. Players, that's taken care of. Let's look at the second part of it, which is the fans. Okay? Now, fans like me, fans like you, we want to watch the bowl games because one, the key players are now playing, and for two, we want to see what happens not only in the first game, we want to see what happens whenever this team meets this team. We want to see what happens when the Hurricanes plays UNLV. We want to see all of that and how it pans out, right? So another part with the fans that's going to be really encouraging is the fact that now it's going to be competitive. I watched 3 bowl games this year. One of them was the Hurricanes-Rutgers game, and to me it looked like the Hurricanes team did not want to be there. They did not look competitive at all. And I think that's because most of the players knew it didn't count towards anything. It wasn't going to help their seeding next year. It didn't really do anything. So they weren't as competitive as they could or should have been. And then the last part about the fans is that the best players are now playing. Like, that is the most important part. If the best players are playing, people will tune in. Right now, the best players aren't playing. They're all opting out. So people aren't watching the games. Okay, so we got the players taken care of. We got the fans taken care of. So now, let's see how it impacts the sponsors. Now the sponsors are happy because they're getting return on investment because the viewership has jumped up. So whenever at the beginning I was telling you if somebody says I'll pay you $1 million to make 1 million people stare at my logo all day, imagine if you made that promise, but instead of having 1 million people stare at their logo, you got 1.2 million people to stare at their logo. Then you could charge more for it the following year because, people are going to be happy with that return on investment. So the second part of that sponsorship is the sponsors would pay more because they're represented in multiple games now. What I mean by that is if UNLV wins this first game, instead of the guaranteed rate bowl being a one and done game where they pump up the guaranteed rate bowl all week or all month or whatever it may be, and then once that game is over, it's over, right? It's just a one-time thing and it's done. But in a tournament situation, the guaranteed rate bowl will be talked about throughout the whole month or so that this tournament's going on. Why? Because people would say the guaranteed rate bowl champion Kansas Jayhawks are now playing the SRS distribution Las Vegas Bowl, as long as that title is, champion Utah. They would play each other. And then once you get to the championship, you would say the guaranteed rate bowl champion Jayhawks are now playing the bad boy mower Pinstripe Bowl Hurricanes. Like, they would talk about your bowl game, not just on one day, but it would be talked about throughout that whole month. Every time the team that wins your bowl, every time they win, they talking about your name, your company name. So that would help as well. You wouldn't just say, we're going to have you sponsor one game. We'd actually be able to tell them you know, sponsor one game, but then the team that represents your bowl game, they're gonna go on and move on, and then they'll talk about your business as well throughout the whole championship. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Anyways, I think this is a win-win-win situation. I think the players, the fans, and the sponsors win in this situation, which is why I think it is the perfect idea for the NCAA, and I'm hoping they put something like this out real soon. I'd be shocked if they haven't thought of something like this already. It just makes common sense to me. I've heard people talking about how they should put the bowl games before the season. And when I heard that, I thought that was a terrible idea. I hated it. And then I went to a different show, and that show had the exact same idea they were talking about, putting the bowl game at the beginning of the season. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And right then, this idea popped in my head, and I was like, I better make a video of this real quick just to get some ideas out there. But I'm curious to know what y'all think. Do you think this is a decent idea? Do you think this makes sense? Let me know if you think that this makes no sense and maybe I'm overlooking something. I'd also want to know what that is too. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. Always looking to grow this channel. I really appreciate the subscription. Yeah, that's pretty much all that I have for you today. So as I always say at the end of the videos, you could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with me, and I truly appreciate that. Take care. God bless. Peace.